Let me tell you something. When a man disappears and then suddenly comes back, it's not always about love. It's about comfort. See, men are simple creatures. We like what's familiar. And when we leave, we don't always leave because we're done. Sometimes we leave because we think we can. But when life humbles us, we remember where the warmth was. When a man returns after a period of no contact, it's often not because he suddenly realized he's deeply in love or that he made a mistake. Most of the time, it's about comfort. People, especially men, gravitate toward what's familiar. It's human nature to seek out places, people, and situations that provide a sense of ease and security. If a man felt comfortable with you, he knows that door is an option. And when things get rough elsewhere, he's likely to come back simply because it's a place he knows. Men don't always leave because they're unhappy. Sometimes they leave because they want to explore, chase something else, or feel like they need space. But when they step out into the world and realize that what's out there isn't as fulfilling as they thought, they remember the comfort they had. It's not necessarily regret, it's familiarity. When life gets difficult or when they experience disappointment, they think back to where they felt accepted, cared for, and understood. They recall the security they had, and instead of trying to build something new, they return to what once felt safe. Comfort isn't just about physical ease, it's emotional too. If a man felt that he could be himself around you, that you understood him without him having to explain too much, or that you provided a space where he didn't feel judged, that's a powerful pull. It's not always about romance or commitment, it's about the ease of being with someone who already knows them. He may not even realize it consciously, but his actions are driven by this deep-seated need to return to a space where he doesn't have to put in too much effort to be accepted. This is why men often reappear after a breakup or a long period of no communication. They may have walked away thinking they wanted something else, but when faced with uncertainty or loneliness, they instinctively seek out what felt good in the past. It's not necessarily because they've had a grand realization about love. It's because they crave the stability and familiarity they once had. Even if they were the ones who walked away, they still remember the comfort that came with you. The important thing to understand is that comfort is not the same as commitment. A man can feel comfortable with you and still not be ready to give you what you deserve. He can miss the way you made him feel without being willing to truly invest in a future together. This is where a lot of people get confused. Just because someone returns doesn't mean they've changed. It doesn't mean they suddenly value you the way they should. It often just means they miss the feeling of ease and security they once had. A man who seeks comfort will return to what's familiar, especially if he believes that space is still open for him. He may not have a clear plan, he may not even know what he truly wants, but he knows that being with you felt better than being alone or facing uncertainty elsewhere. When a man disappears, it doesn't always mean he's done with you or that he never cared. Many times it means he believes he can leave without losing you for good. People, especially men, make decisions based on what they feel is available to them. If he thought there was even a small chance that he could walk away and still have access to you later, he wouldn't hesitate to take that risk. Men are wired to test boundaries, whether they realize it or not. If he felt safe enough to leave, it's because in his mind, there was no real consequence. He believed that no matter how much time passed, he could still return and pick up where he left off. This isn't always a conscious decision. It's often an internalized belief that comes from past experiences, either with you or with other relationships. If he's been in situations where disappearing didn't cost him anything, then he assumes this will be the same. Sometimes men leave because they feel like they have options. Maybe they think they need to explore what else is out there. Maybe they want to chase a different experience, a different person, or just their own independence. But they don't always consider that walking away could mean losing you permanently. They assume that since you cared for them before, you'll still care for them when they decide to return. This belief makes it easy for them to disappear without a second thought. It's also important to understand that men walk away when they feel too sure of what they have. When someone becomes predictable, or when a man feels like there's no urgency to commit, he might take that security for granted. He doesn't think about what he's losing in the moment. He only realizes it when that security is no longer there. Until he actually experiences the loss, the absence, the reality of you being gone, he won't fully grasp the risk he took. Another reason men disappear is that they assume they'll be welcomed back just as easily as before. If you've ever been in a situation where you forgave him quickly, responded to his messages even after long silences, or accepted him back without much effort on his part, then he's learned that leaving doesn't actually mean losing you. He sees that as permission to come and go as he pleases. In his mind, there's no urgency to stay because no matter what, he believes he can return whenever it's convenient for him. Men don't just leave because they're unhappy. Sometimes they leave because they believe they can, without consequences, without loss, and without having to prove themselves again, until something shows them otherwise, they'll continue to act on that belief. When a man comes back after a period of no contact, it doesn't always mean he's changed or suddenly realized your worth. Most of the time, he's just testing the waters to see if the door is still open. He's checking if you'll respond the same way, if you'll still entertain him, and if he still has a place in your life. This isn't necessarily about love or commitment. It's about curiosity, habit, and sometimes even ego. People naturally gravitate toward what's familiar, and if he was once comfortable with you, he's going to wonder if that comfort is still available. It's not necessarily a grand realization that you're the one for him. It's more about reassurance. He wants to know if he still has access to you, if he still holds a place in your heart, and if you'll still entertain the idea of him. For some men, it's not even about rekindling the relationship. It's just about knowing they could if they wanted to. Testing the waters can come in different forms. It might be a random message, a casual, hey, how have you been? Or even a reaction to your social media post. These small moves aren't always about genuinely wanting to reconnect. They're about gauging your response. If you reply quickly, if you seem excited, or if you engage the way you used to, he gets the confirmation he needs. He still has an emotional hold on you. That alone can be enough for him to walk away again, feeling reassured that you're still there if he ever decides to come back fully. For some men, returning is about ego. They want to know they still matter to you. They want to know that even after time apart, they can still have your attention. It's not about fixing what went wrong or making things right. It's about validation. If you respond warmly, it boosts his confidence. If you ignore him, it might make him try a little harder, but it also forces him to realize that maybe he no longer has the control he once did. Sometimes a man will come back just to see if you've moved on. He may not want to commit, but he doesn't necessarily want to see you with someone else either. This is when you'll notice inconsistency. He reaches out, shows interest, but never follows through with real effort. That's because the goal was never to rebuild something meaningful. It was just to see if you were still available in some way. This is why it's important not to assume that a return means transformation. The fact that he's back doesn't mean he's different. If he left before, there was a reason. If he's coming back now, the real question isn't just why, it's what has changed. If the only thing that's different is time, then chances are he's just checking to see if the door is still open rather than truly wanting to walk through it. When a man realizes he can come and go as he pleases without any real consequences, he will continue to do so. It's human nature to take the easiest path. And if he knows that no matter how many times he disappears, you will always take him back without hesitation, he won't see a reason to change. He won't feel the need to be consistent, to put in effort, or to truly commit because, in his mind, he doesn't have to. When a man is given the freedom to leave and return without resistance, he learns that he doesn't have to earn his place in your life. If he can disappear for weeks or months and then show up with a simple message like, I miss you, or I've been thinking about you, and you welcome him back, he sees that as permission to keep repeating the cycle. He doesn't have to work hard to regain your trust. He doesn't have to prove anything. He just has to show up, and that's enough. This kind of inconsistency creates an unhealthy pattern. He knows that as long as he gives just enough attention, just enough sweet words, or just enough affection, when he does return, you'll be there waiting. He may not even be doing this intentionally or maliciously. It's simply how people behave when they don't see consequences for their actions. If he can have you without having to put in real effort, he will never feel the need to give you more. The problem is that when you allow inconsistency, you start accepting less than what you truly deserve. You begin to lower your standards, convincing yourself that even small gestures mean he cares. You start making excuses for his behavior, telling yourself that maybe he's just scared of commitment, maybe he's been busy, or maybe he just needs time. But in reality, he's showing you exactly what he's willing to give, and if that isn't enough for you, then allowing him to continue this pattern will only lead to more disappointment. Men respect what they have to work for. If they know they can lose something valuable, they will try harder to keep it. But if they feel like no matter what they do, they'll always have access to you, they won't see a reason to change. They will come and go at their convenience, knowing that you will always be there when they decide to return. Consistency is a choice. A man who truly values you will make the choice to show up, to communicate, and to stay. But if you allow a man to keep walking in and out of your life without consequences, you're teaching him that his presence is enough no matter how inconsistent it may be. If you don't set a standard for how you want to be treated, he will continue to do whatever is easiest for him rather than what is best for you. When a man truly values you, he doesn't put himself in a position to lose you. He understands that something rare and meaningful isn't worth risking for temporary distractions, personal doubts, or selfish desires. A man who sees your worth will do everything in his power to keep you close, not because he's afraid of being alone, but because he knows you bring value to his life in a way that no one else does. A man who values you moves differently. He doesn't play mind games or disappear without explanation. He doesn't treat your presence as an option while he explores his other choices. He understands that love, respect, and trust aren't things to gamble with. He doesn't make reckless decisions that put your relationship on the line because he knows that once something is broken, it may never be the same again. When a man knows he has something special, he prioritizes it. He doesn't take you for granted or assume you'll always be there no matter what he does. He respects your time, your feelings, and your effort because he knows that relationships aren't one-sided. He sees you as a partner, not just someone who fills a void when it's convenient for him. He's intentional with his actions, clear about his feelings, and consistent with his efforts. A man who values you isn't afraid of commitment. He doesn't make excuses about needing space or feeling unsure about what he wants. He doesn't keep you in a cycle of confusion where one moment he's deeply invested and the next he's distant. Instead, he makes it clear that he wants you in his life, and he backs that up with consistent action. He understands that love isn't just about how he feels. It's about how he shows up, even when it's not convenient or easy. Men don't risk what they truly care about. They don't disappear without a second thought, expecting you to wait for them while they figure things out. If he values you, he won't create unnecessary distance. He won't make choices that put your trust in jeopardy. He won't leave you wondering where you stand or force you to question your importance in his life. He will make sure you know, not just through words, but through actions that show you are a priority, not an afterthought. When a man values you, he actively works to strengthen the relationship. He communicates, he listens, and he makes sure his actions align with his words. He won't allow external distractions or momentary temptations to come between what he knows is worth holding on to. He won't take advantage of your kindness or assume that he can mistreat you and still have a place in your life. He understands that love is a choice, and he consistently chooses to honor and protect what he has with you. You are the prize, and that means you should never settle for being someone's backup plan. When you know your worth, you don't allow anyone to treat you as an option or a convenience. A man who truly wants you will show up for you, prioritize you, and make it clear that you are someone he values. If he comes and goes as he pleases, only reaching out when it's convenient for him, then he doesn't see you as the prize. He sees you as a fallback, someone he can turn to when nothing else is working out. Men don't take for granted what they genuinely respect. If he knows that you are a woman of value, he won't risk losing you by being inconsistent or by keeping you waiting while he figures out what he wants. He won't treat you like an option while he explores other possibilities. He won't expect you to be there when he's ready, especially if he hasn't done the work to earn his place in your life. A man who sees you as a priority will act like it, and his actions will never make you feel like you have to beg for his time, attention, or love. The way you allow people to treat you sets the tone for how they will continue to behave. If you accept inconsistency, half-hearted efforts, and broken promises, then that becomes the standard they believe is enough for you. If you make it easy for someone to return without accountability, they will never feel the need to step up and give you more. But when you recognize that you are the prize, you stop accepting less than you deserve. You stop making excuses for someone who isn't showing up for you in the way that you need. A man who truly values you will put in the effort to keep you. He will not risk losing you by being reckless with your time or emotions. He will not take your kindness for granted or assume that you will always be available when he decides to come back. He will understand that if he wants you in his life, he has to be intentional about it. He has to be consistent. He has to prove, not just with words, but with real effort, that he is worthy of you. You don't have to chase someone to prove your worth. The right man will recognize it without you having to convince him. You don't need to lower your standards to keep someone's attention. A man who is meant for you will rise to meet those standards because he understands that a woman like you is irreplaceable. You don't need to be someone's backup plan, safety net, or second choice. You are the prize. And when you believe that, you will stop allowing anyone to treat you as anything less.